It's Lenny, baby. I ain't gotta worry. I ain't gotta worry. I ain't gotta worry all week.
Hi, fan clubbers. Me, Lynn Holla, and I hope your week has been worry free. So we are on our little break that CW takes right before they will pick back up and end before the summer break, and then they'll pick up after the summertime in the fall. So we do not have a legacies to talk about today because it did not come on this week. It'll pick back up next week, so we'll have it to talk about next Sunday. So let's go ahead and just talk about the premiere of Superman and Lois. It was definitely a show that's been waiting, that people have been waiting on. I was even waiting on it. They did when they introduced us to Superman and Lois through through the U verses. But I don't really watch Supergirl, so I know that she had an episode or two before we met them through the U-verse of her meeting her cousin, but the rest of us who watched CW met them when all the superhero characters came together to save the world. And so we were kind of looking forward to it. What I was not prepared for was for them to have grown kids. The last time we checked, Lois had just had the twin boys. So I'm assuming that these are going to be little boys by the time that we watch the show and they're grown. And obviously, one is coming into their powers, but yet they don't know that Superman is their dad, which is also yet another shocker for me. I don't really understand why, if you're an alien and you have superpowers that make you legit like one of the most prominent superheroes of the world, you're so prominent that Batman has to keep kryptonite because he's afraid that if you were to ever turn evil, no one would be able to stop you. This is who you are. Like, people, even though you have always been a character that has been set up to be so righteous and good and always standing for right, that you're so powerful that if you turn evil, even your colleagues are afraid that you can't be defeated. So Batman keeps a supply of kryptonite just for you. But you don't want to tell your kids that you're Superman because somehow not telling them that is better for them. And we just don't even come up with this idea that they could potentially have powers themselves. So we should definitely not tell them who their father is because they won't just end up coming into powers because we're protecting them and keeping them from going through what you went through. And I guess as a parent, I see that they probably made that choice for people to be able to say, I relate. There's things I keep from my kids because I don't want them to have to worry about it. I don't want to have to make them go through it. Forgive me, even as a mother, for still thinking that that was absolutely ridiculous. Like, I just think that there's just certain things that we can say that makes sense. And then there's other things that we just like, but no, seriously though, you have super strength, lasers come out of your eyes, you are made out of steel. Bullets literally bounce off of you. You have all of these combined powers to make you what we call Superman. And now we have to believe that it makes sense for all your other family members to know. You wasn't able to keep this a secret from Lois, your parents, Lex Luthor. That's why he becomes your biggest freaking enemy. You ain't been able to keep this a secret from no one close to you. But it makes sense to try to keep it a secret from the ones who may turn out to be just like you. Am I honestly the only one who's sitting here going, please somebody make that make sense to me? After I realized that his kids were grown and that they were little boys, I was like, okay, well, this is clearly then going to be a show that's just going to follow the boys into coming into their power. I just assumed that they both had powers, but then you set it up to where no, it's going to be one versus the other. Either way, that's fine. But instead, we have to start off first with them even finding out the truth. I just wish we could have bypassed that part. That's all. Like I really feel like the story could have still been something that we would have been interested in. I get that with superheroes being having superpowers and being especially DC characters being so righteous and good and literally we can't really relate to that because let's just be honest, everyone has a bit of evil and a bit of good to them. That's what makes us human. That's why we can never be perfect. We will always achieve for perfection, but we can never be perfect. We will always be flawed, which will allow us to be able to make choices that may not necessarily be right or good. So I get that when you are writing about superheroes, you have to make them relatable to your average Joe that is watching so that they can want to continue to watch so that they can have something that they can aspire. Okay, but I'm just saying, I can't. That bothers me. I don't know why. That bothered me so much. It almost made me not want to watch the show. And I also have to admit, part of my bias is out of all the DC characters, super, forget just DC, out of all the DC and Marvel characters, Superman is by far my least favorite, has always been my least favorite, and probably will always be my least favorite. In fact, I didn't even start liking Superman until I started watching Smallville. And I liked that Superman. That's and he wasn't even Superman yet, but that's the whole thing about Smallville. That's him becoming Superman. But still, though, like that was the first time ever that I was just like, and I literally watched Smallville from episode one up. Now it took me a minute because again, Superman isn't my favorite superhero, so I just started watching Smallville until it started playing reruns on TNT. So, but I mean, it finally caught my interest. I watched from episode one all the way to the end. I mean, I was sitting there going, I know at some point Clark Kent becomes a reporter, meets Lois, and gets married to her. I don't understand why him and Lana can't leave each other alone. Made notes. I was just like, well, kind of like Lana better than Lois any damn way. I didn't like Lois. I didn't like nothing about Superman. I didn't like Superman. I didn't like Lois. I didn't like. It was my least favorite character. These and I always preferred Marvel over DC. I remember having this conversation with my dad because my dad he was born in the early 50s, so my dad grew up with comic books with that being the thing. So my dad, when I say my dad had, he used to have boxes full of comics, but I eventually I had to unfortunately end up getting rid of them. I was going to try to sell them because I know how priceless some comics can be, but at the time, I know I mentioned this in one video, and I know I don't get very many views on my video, so I'll just mention again. My parents are disabled, so I've been taking care of my parents for quite some time, and it just gotten to the point where trying to lug all of my dad's books and comic books and baseball cards and things of that it that stuff has weight to it, and it requires space. And he used to keep all of that stuff in a storage and couldn't afford a storage bin anymore. So, needless to say, I had to get rid of most of that stuff. Um, he still has literally a very small collection still of comic books, but most of his comic books are gone. It's still torn to this day. But anyhow, this is how I get introduced to superheroes through my father when I was a kid. He's the one who introduced me to superheroes and that there are specific ones for DC, specific ones for Marvel. However, because of the competition with the comic books, they basically mirror each other. What one superhero on this side do, the other one on this side do. Like they were pretty much the same. The main difference that me and him always had a discussion about that I saw between Marvel and DC is that DC tended to have their superheroes be a little bit more untouchable, such as being very righteous and good and never failing and never doing anything wrong. And Marvel sometimes allow for their superheroes to be flawed. So, of course, I did gravitate more to Marvel characters. Basically, I'm saying all of this background to let you know that out of all these characters I get introduced to at a young age, Superman never made it to my top nothing. You ask me what my most least favorite, he would be number one. Okay, so but I was looking forward to Superman and Lois because I'm like, again, I am a fan of the CW, so I've been introduced to them when they did the universe, so I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a good show. I watched it. I liked it for the most part. I'm hoping to like it even more, but I just I'm not excited about a hard headed Clark Kent because that's basically what you told me is that Clark Kent is so hard headed that he really thought it made sense to not tell his potentially powerful sons that he was Superman and that they was potentially going to have powers and that it makes sense for the type of powers that he have that they could potentially have themselves to not want to train them, inform them, keep them ahead of it because we want to make sure that they don't get teased by kids like I did. That was more important than lasers coming out of my child's eyes and then they burn up the entire freaking school. Me making sure that they don't get bullied versus making sure that they don't become the bully because they got these powers that they don't even know about and then they end up throwing people around the school. I'm more concerned about people teasing and harassing them versus them being a threat because they have these strong powers that I give them no hints or clue about because I have them convinced that I'm always gone because I'm reporting. My wife is a famous reporter and I'm going more than she is. All of this makes sense. Yeah. Well, that's all that I have about Superman and Lois Lane premiere. Please let me know how you feel. Am I just ranting because I'm biased about Superman, or was it just like, could we not have had a better premiere? I liked all the other. I don't know. You please let me know how you feel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and please share this video. Thank you again for tuning in for another week. I hope to see you next Sunday. Bye.